Welcome. Today we're doing a deep dive into a really specific section of ancient scripture, Jeremiah chapter 48.
Right. And this one is, well, it's intense. It's laser focused on one nation, Moab.
Exactly. A really detailed prophecy just loaded with vivid imagery about judgment and destruction.
Yeah, and the reasons behind it all.
So our plan is to really unpack what the text says is going to happen to Moab, get into why this judgment is coming down, and, pull out some key things from the verses themselves.
Sounds good. Let's jump in.
Okay, so right off the bat, the text doesn't really hold back. It starts with these announcements of doom hitting specific towns.
Yeah, no easing into it. Names. Nebo, Kiriathaim, Heshbon, Madmen, Horonaim. Straight away.
And the predictions are, well, blunt. Nebo's going to be ruined. Kiriathaim, disgraced and captured.
And it even points to Heshbon as, like, the starting point for the plot against Moab.
The language feels designed for maximum impact. Disgrace, capture, shattering.
Silencing. Madmen will be silenced, it says. Pursued by the sword. And you hear these cries of havoc already rising from Horonaim. It paints this picture of sudden, violent collapse happening everywhere at once.
It really does. It sets this tone of just complete downfall from the very beginning. Moab is broken. Their children are crying out.
And that line, Moab will be praised no more. Just stark.
The plot's already unfolding, essentially.
So, okay, the start tells us what is happening, this widespread, specific destruction. But then pretty quickly, it shifts to the why.
Yeah, why this incredibly harsh judgment against Moab.
And the first reason given is pretty fundamental, isn't it? It's about what they trusted in.
Right. It says, since you trust in your deeds and riches, you too will be taken captive. That link is explicit.
Their own works, their wealth, that's what they relied on. And the text frames that as, well, the core problem, trusting in the wrong things.
Self-sufficiency, maybe materialism, presented as a major vulnerability.
Exactly. But it digs deeper than just that. It goes into their national character, hitting hard on pride.
Oh yeah, pride comes up again and again.
It really does, explicitly. Her overweening pride and conceit. And then later, her pride and arrogance and the haughtiness of her heart. It's not subtle. This was seen as a, defining trait.
And there's that line, giving the divine perspective on it.
I know her insolence, but it is futile, and her boasts accomplish nothing. That's powerful stuff. It's like, yeah, I see your arrogance, your bluster, but it's empty. It has no real power against what's coming.
So their pride was basically hot air, ineffective.
Leading to this false sense of security, yeah.
Yeah.
Which then connects to another key reason.
Their defiance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Defiance of the Lord. Later on, it flat out says Moab will be destroyed because she defied the Lord. So their confidence in themselves spilled over into active opposition.
And then there's that really unique analogy it uses, the wine one.
Oh, yeah, the wine analogy. Moab is like wine left on its dregs, not poured from one jar to another. Such a vivid image.
What's that really getting at in terms of judging a nation?
Well, it suggests they haven't been disturbed for a long time. Unlike other nations, maybe Israel, that faced invasions, exile, big upheavals. Moab, it says, has not gone into exile. They've been settled, stable, kind of left alone.
Okay.
And the implication is that this lack of being poured or shaken up made them complacent, stagnant. Their character, their taste and aroma didn't change. They became resistant to challenge because they hadn't really faced it.
Wow, complacency born from, unbroken ease.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So you've got this mix, trusting in their own stuff, this deep-seated pride that's ultimately useless, active defiance, and this dangerous complacency from never really being challenged. That's the cocktail leading to judgment, according to the text.
That's a heavy combination. Okay, so we have the why. Now let's look at the how. How is this destruction actually described? Who or what brings it?
The main agent is just called the destroyer, but then it picks up that wine image again.
Oh.
It says, I will send men who pour from jars, and they will pour her out. They will empty her jars and smash her jugs. So the very thing that signals their stability and complacency, the undisturbed wine, is going to be violently undone, emptied, broken.
The judgment directly tackles their self-image. And it's not just one or two places, is it? The scope seems huge.
Totally. It's described as, well, absolute. The destroyer comes against every town, and not a town will escape. The whole map is covered. The valley will be ruined. The plateau destroyed.
Total devastation. And wasn't there a symbolic action mentioned too? Something about salt?
Yes. Put salt on Moab, for she will be laid waste. That's an ancient practice, right? Sowing salt in conquered land to make it barren, unusable. It signifies complete, irreversible ruin. finality.
Underscoring just how total this is meant to be. And the text keeps listing towns, doesn't it? Reinforcing the scale.
Yeah, it circles back. Dibon, Nebo again, Beth Diblathaim, Kiriathaim again, Beth Gamul, Beth Meon, Kerioth, Bozrah, all these places. It explicitly says the judgment covers all the towns of Moab, far and near. No exceptions.
And the imagery used for their strength being broken.
Oh, that's potent. Moab's horn is cut off. Her arm is broken. The horn, symbolizes power, national pride. The arm is their might, their ability to act.
So cutting off the horn, breaking the arm.
Means they're totally powerless.
Yeah.
Defenseless. Their strength is gone.
So we have the physical ruin, the loss of strength. Then the text shifts to the feeling of it all, the humiliation, the shame.
And this is where it gets really graphic. Moab becomes an object of ridicule and a horror. And that image of being made drunk, forced to wallow in her vomit,
Yeah.
it's just a picture of complete loss of dignity, control, status, reduced to something repulsive and helpless.
And this humiliation is tied back to how they treated others, specifically Israel.
Yes, the text asks that really pointed question. Was not Israel the object of your ridicule, that you shake your head in scorn whenever you speak of her? It's like saying, now you get to feel what you dished out.
A real turning of the tables.
Yeah.
The shame they caused is now coming back on them.
And it's not just political shame. It hits their core identity, their religion.
Right. The text says Moab will be ashamed of Chemosh, their main god.
Exactly. And it explicitly links this to Israel's shame when they trusted in Bethel.
Okay. Maybe unpack that Chemosh Bethel link a bit for us.
Sure. So Chemosh was the big national god of Moab. Their identity, their security, it was all tied up with faith in Chemosh. So for them to be ashamed of him means their ultimate source of trust has completely failed them. It's powerless.
Right.
The comparison to Bethel refers to times when Israelites turned away from the Lord and worshipped idols, particularly at places like Bethel. When judgment came on Israel, those idols were useless, leading to deep shame. So the text is saying Moab's experience with Chemosh failing them will be just as devastating, just as humiliating as Israel's experience with their worthless idols.
Got it. So it's a fundamental collapse of their worldview, their source of security. Not just losing a war, but losing their god, essentially.
A complete existential humiliation, which leads us naturally into how the text describes the grief and loss. It's not just stated, it's like audible.
Yeah, you really hear the mourning, cries from Heshbon to Elealeh and Jahaz, anguish cries on the road to Horonaim, bitter weeping on the road to Luhith.
It's a soundscape of sorrow, filling the land. And the mourning isn't just crying, it's shown through these intense physical acts.
The traditional signs of deep grief.
Exactly. Every head is shaved and every beard cut off. Every hand is slashed and every waist is covered with sackcloth. These are extreme signs of despair, casting off normal appearance, self-inflicted marks of grief.
And this sorrow isn't just personal. It hits their whole society, their environment.
Right. The destroyer falls on their ripened fruit and grapes, their harvest gone. Joy and gladness are gone from the orchards and fields.
The very symbols of their prosperity are wiped out.
Yeah, and the stopping of the flow of wine from the presses, that's a direct hit on their economy and maybe their celebrations too. Even nature is affected. The waters of Nimrim are dried up, essential resources just gone.
And tying back to the shame of Chemosh, their religious life ends too.
In Moab, I will put an end to those who make offerings on the high places and burn incense to their gods. The whole system associated with their failed god is dismantled.
Amidst all this human suffering and national ruin, there's that really striking moment where the text describes divine grief.
Yes, that's one of the most powerful parts, I think. The divine voice says, "So my heart laments for Moab like a flute. It laments like a flute for the men of Kir-Hareseth."
A flute, often used for mourning music, right?
Precisely. So even while declaring and enacting the judgment, the text portrays this deep sorrow from the divine side over Moab's destruction. It's not presented as, a gleeful punishment. There's grief woven into it.
That adds such a layer of complexity. It's not just anger or retribution.
No, it complicates that simple picture. And the imagery keeps coming, pictures of capture, helplessness, people trying to escape.
Yeah, those desperate calls. Flee! Run for your lives! Become like a bush in the desert, or hide out in the rocks, like a dove that makes its nest at the mouth of a cave, trying to just disappear.
But then immediately after suggesting flight,
it slams the door shut. Terror and pit and snare await you.
And that layered trap image, flee the terror, fall in the pit, climb out of the pit, get caught in the snare.
There's no way out.
It's designed to convey absolute inescapability. The judgment is coming, and you can't dodge it.
Doom is sealed, and the force bringing it is pictured as swift and overwhelming.
The eagle swooping down, spreading its wings over Moab. Classic imagery for a fast, dominant, invading power. Total inescapable disaster.
And there was that specific mention of fire, too.
Yes, a fire from Heshbon burning the foreheads of Moab, the skulls of the noisy boasters, which echoes back to their pride, doesn't it? Their defiant words consumed by the consequences.
And even their warriors, their military might.
Completely useless. Their hearts become like the heart of a woman in labor. Gripped by sudden, overwhelming pain, fear, total inability to fight back.
Helplessness. And the final outcome for the people themselves.
Exile and captivity. Your sons are taken into exile and your daughters into captivity. The loss of the next generation, removed from their land. The end of Moab as they knew it.
So, okay, we've gone through this incredibly detailed, overwhelming picture. Utter destruction, shame, grief, helplessness, capture, town by town, act by act. It feels absolutely final. And then the very last sentence just seems to pull the rug out.
It really does. After all that, the final line. Yet I will restore the fortunes of Moab in days to come.
It feels so unexpected,
Yeah.
jarring even. After page of total ruin, inescapable traps, exile, suddenly restoration.
It's a deliberate contrast, absolutely. After laying out the totality of the judgment, this promise of a future restoration is tacked right on the end. It doesn't say how, doesn't say when, but its placement is undeniably significant.
So let's step back a bit. We've looked closely at Jeremiah 48, and it paints this incredibly thorough picture of judgment against Moab.
Yeah, this source gives us so many specifics. Named towns, physical acts of mourning like shaving heads and slashing hands, the economic ruin, the environmental impact. It uses vivid language, shattered jars, salt on the land, the eagle swooping down to make it feel real and total.
And the reasons are laid out very clearly. Trusting in themselves, their wealth, that deep, useless pride, defiance, and that dangerous complacency from having it too easy for too long.
And the imagery is so visceral, covering everything from public shame and ridicule, the actual sounds of wailing across the land, the physical signs of grief, and that terrifying sense of inescapable doom.
And then right at the very end, after all that finality, that surprising promise of restoration.
Yeah, it really complicates things, doesn't it? It stops you from just reading it as total, permanent annihilation. It introduces this other dimension, this possibility for the future.
Exactly. Which leaves you thinking, doesn't it? What does that final promise, stuck right on the end of such a comprehensive declaration of judgment, actually suggest? Does it change how we should understand the judgment itself? Maybe it's a devastating phase, but not the absolute final word.
Or does it point to a larger arc in the way this text views history or divine action, one where even after complete ruin, there's still potential for something new?
Right. How does that unexpected twist challenge that feeling of absolute finality that the rest of the chapter builds so powerfully? It definitely gives you something to chew on when you engage with a text this complex.